right, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Just by way of introduction, I'm Bernadette L. Harris for anybody who does not know me. I run an accounting and small business advisory firm, and my firm has been remote for the last 12 years. And so, even though we've been in business 23 years, and in those 23 years, probably about 50% of our clients work with us virtually anyway, even 23 years ago. So I was in Atlanta and I was working with clients in Florida, and Atlanta is very, very big. So I had clients all over the city who never came into the office. So remote work was something that has always been something that I've done. And 12 years ago, I gave up my office because I said, why am I paying this office rent and all of these utilities and all of this stuff when most of my clients are engaging with me online? I had no idea 12 years ago that having a virtual firm was going to really come in handy when I was ready to leave the United States and live somewhere else. But it did, and it definitely came in handy when the pandemic hit because we didn't miss a beat. We were already doing all of the things. We were already meeting on Zoom, already working with our clients virtually. And so those things didn't cause us any kind of a hiccup. And then when I was ready to leave the United States, once again, I was able to do that. And some people don't know this, but I actually left the United States and I didn't announce that I was gone until 6 months later. Because it was a part of a test to let people know, like, I could still serve you and be in another country. So I'm just sharing that part of my story just to, as a preference. So tonight, today, depending on where you are and what time it is, where you live, I do not have a presentation. I've just been getting a lot of inbox messages and text messages and social media comments. And so I said, hey, I'm going to give an hour of my time to answer any questions that anyone might have about the process or whatever. I am not an expert on moving out of the country, so all I can share is my experience. And I also have my sister Carol is here, and she and her husband have just recently left too, and they're in Mexico as well. And so if it's something that I can't speak to, I'm also welcoming her to come and share her experience. So I will tell you this. I am a little visually impaired, so I would prefer if you come off mute and ask your question verbally, because I'm gonna be like this trying to read your question in the chat, and we don't have time for that today. So that's not let's not do that. So just to keep it orderly or whatever, if you have a question or if you want to start with the question, just raise your hand and I'll call you, and then you could come off of mute and ask your question, and I will answer your question the best of my ability.
Thank you for doing this. I was glad that I happened to scroll by it. I'm Felicia Simone, and we have a bunch of stuff in common. But let me just start with my first question. Could you break down Bernadette in its simplest form, from passport to work visas to business license and all of those things, and how that was transferred or redone from Atlanta to Mexico?
Okay, great question. All right, so my timeline, I will always share this. Like, my timeline is probably the most unrealistic timeline that there is. So don't try to do what I did, right? Because it was kind of nuts. Like, I've been wanting to be an expat for probably at least 10 years. And I made a decision. I was like, okay, enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. And for those of you who don't know, it was a health decision for me. I was working too much when I was in the States, and I made myself sick. So I had hypertension. I was overweight. I'm still a little overweight, but I had hypertension and just really, really stressed out and working too much. And so I wanted to change my environment. I wanted to live somewhere where I could work less and focus on my health. So that's kind of how Mexico came to be. So timeline for me, and in the shortest version that I can of my process. February, I said, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm going. And I picked Mexico because it was close enough but far enough. So it was another country, but it was close enough because many of you know I have an adult daughter and my parents are still alive. And my parents and my grandmother are still in the States. And so I figured if anything happened and I needed to get home to see about them, it's a plane. It's a, I don't have to take all day or 2 days to fly back. So that's the reason why I chose Mexico. That's one of the reasons. The other reason that I chose Mexico was because I knew that I was going to continue to earn money in US dollars because as I said before, my firm is virtual, my income is in the United States, and I know that the US dollar goes a lot further in Mexico than it does in the United States. So those were kind of my thought processes. So I picked Mexico. I started researching. I went down the YouTube rabbit hole. I started watching a whole ton of videos because I had no idea what city in Mexico I was gonna land in. Like all we know are the tourist spots like Cancun and Cabo and whatever. And so I didn't know what city I was gonna land in. But the YouTube rabbit hole kind of led me to where I am. And I am in the very perfect city for me. For those of you who don't know, I live in Merida, Mexico, and that's how you say it in Spanish. If you say it in English, you say Merida, right? So I live in Merida, Mexico, and it is the perfect city for me. So I started researching. I selected Merida. That was in February. In March, I got my appointment with the Mexican consulate. They have them all over the country, but not every state has a consulate. So Georgia's consulate is in Atlanta, thankfully. So I got my appointment with the consulate. And I'll say this, I moved almost 3 years ago. And so the laws and the income requirements, all of those things have changed, and they are increasing the income requirements every year. But I got my appointment with the consulate to get to become a temporary resident. So when you get your appointment with the consulate, there are a list of things that you have to take to your appointment. The main thing is you got to be able to show that you can support yourself because you cannot come to Mexico and get a job. And you don't want to because the income that you make in the United States is not going to be anywhere near what the people here in Mexico make. You're going to be working for pesos, and it's not what you want to do. You want to earn money in the United States and then live here in Mexico. So I got my temporary residency, like they put a sticker on my passport. So the requirements at the time when I did it, you had to show, they wanted to see 6 months of bank statements. You had to meet the income requirement. Just because it was just me, I didn't have to worry about like qualifying for a family. But if it's like a family or if you have a spouse, then whatever the number is kind of double of that number. I think the last time I heard it was $4,300 a month, but it also varies from consulate to consulate. So Atlanta might have a number, and then the consulate in Florida may have a different number. So you have to check the consulate wherever you are to know like what the income requirement is. So you got to be able to show that you have income and your income is not going to change when you go to the consulate. So I took bank statements, pay stubs, because it was my own business. I had like my Secretary of State information to show that I owned the company, all of that. And it was, it was no problem. My income exceeded the amount that they needed. Now you asked about a work visa. I don't have a work visa. I don't work in Mexico. My business is not in Mexico. I don't file taxes in Mexico. My domicile is in Mexico. That's it. I still have my business. My business is registered in Georgia. I still file taxes in the United States. I still file a Georgia return. I still renew my LLC in Georgia, my Secretary of State. So none of that has changed. And remember, my business is virtual, so I can live anywhere and run my business. All this Georgia care about is their money, and they get it, right? Because I'm filing my taxes and I'm doing my LLC paperwork. So I got my approval from the Mexican consulate in March, and I left the United States. Well, I left in April, but I went on vacation. So me and Kenya went to Hawaii for a week, and then I landed in Mexico in May, Cinco de Mayo, actually. So I landed here in May, and when I got here, then I finished the process. So I hired an attorney here. They did the paperwork. And then, like, in less than 30 days, I got my green card. So I am a temporary resident of Mexico, and I'm still a US citizen. So I still have my US passport, and all of that. I just have residency here in Mexico. Did I answer all of your questions, Felicia? Okay. All right, Carla, I see your hand.
Okay, I have a bunch of questions, but first, why did you choose that city specifically?
So when I went down the YouTube rabbit hole, there was this one video that really helped me figure out. Like, I had already picked Mexico was gonna be my country, and there was her name is actually Rashida Dow. She did a video where she compared like 5 cities in Mexico. And before I picked the city, I was very clear on what it was that I needed in a city. And the things that I needed were it was a short list, but they were very, very important. So I needed a city that had high-speed internet because my business is virtual. So I need to work somewhere where there was really good internet. So I didn't want to be nowhere where they say the internet be dropping and all this other stuff. So I need high-speed internet. I needed an airport, an international airport. I didn't want to live in a city where I have to drive 2 hours to get to the airport, and that's the case for some cities. And I just wanted to see community with Black people. Honestly, I wanted to see, and I saw those things. So when I saw the video, I heard about like other cities, and I actually joined a Facebook group before I got here. So I joined a Facebook group, and I saw the community happening in the Facebook group. And that was the thing that helped me to see, like, okay, this is what I need, because I was going to be moving by myself. And so I wanted to be somewhere where it was that. And I also needed safety. And Merida is the safest city in Mexico. So I got my safety, I got a community, I have an airport, I have high-speed internet. My internet here is faster than my internet was in Atlanta. And so I had those things, and that was just like, I had a real basic list. So it was just like anything else, I'll make it work. And I've been able to do that. And I've, have community here. I don't do nightlife. Like, I'm a day party person. Invite me to a day party, I'm gonna show up. You invite me to something at night, I don't know, it's questionable. And if it is, I'm gonna be leaving at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, like. So Merida is not like a big city in the sense of like clubbing and all of that. And that's perfect. At this stage and age of my life, I'm not trying to do any of those kind of things. Do they have brunch? Do they have beaches? Do they have margaritas? Oh, I'm coming. Right. So yeah, so that was kind of how I picked it. And like I said, I just picked the perfect city for me because it works for my lifestyle and the way I live.
Okay, that's awesome. You need to be an ambassador because you sold me.
You say you had a bunch of questions.
Well, I wanted to see if anybody else had questions because I got asked questions the whole hour.
Okay, well, go ahead. You go ahead and ask your question, and then I see Danita has a question. So go ahead.
Okay, so here's my issue now, because as you know, I lived abroad as well, but I was working for someone. So my problem is now trying to find something that's remote because all the jobs that I know of, I can't do remote. So do you have any suggestions for remote work?
That's the heart, and that's why I opened up by saying, like, I have been working remotely for years, because that's the biggest hurdle for most people. And there are people who come here without remote work and they struggle, because you're not gonna be able to legally work here. You can work here, you can hustle and do some stuff, but you're gonna be working for pesos. And it's just like I think I saw something in one of the groups today that said that teachers make about like 5,000 pesos a month. Like 5,000 pesos is like, that's like, it's nothing. It is 250 US dollars. You can't live here if you don't have remote work. And that's usually the biggest hurdle. I don't think 5,000 pesos sounds really low. And I hope that I read that wrong, but just kind of putting it in context, like even Mexicans, like I was talking to one of my friends who was a Mexican, and she moved here from Mexico City, and she was saying the money that she made in Mexico City it's like half. If she tried to do that same job here, it would be half. So it's just not, you have to have a US based income to do it. And sometimes, like with teaching, like you taught, so maybe you could get like an online teaching job. I don't know what that space is looking like for educators if you even want to go back into that field.
Okay, do you have to do border runs like to
No,
renew
because I
something?
I
Okay.
did it legally. I did it. I got that's why I went to the consulate, got my visa. When I came here, I finished the process. So I am legal. I'm here. I can leave and stay as long as I want to. I have my little green card. And yeah, so no, I don't have to do any border runs. That's for people who come here. It's essentially illegal. They come here on a tourist visa, and they can, on a tourist visa, you can only stay as long as how much time the immigration officer gives you when you fly in. So that's risky too, because it used to be an automatic 6 months, but now it's at the discretion of the immigration officer. So they could say, we're gonna give you 2 weeks, and you over here living, and you got 2 weeks to leave the country and come back. I don't have time for that. Like
Just a quick question about medical. So I'm not sure, how does that work when you are I guess your domicile is Mexico. If you have like just regular doctor's appointments, or if you need a surgery of any kind, do you need to come back here to do that, or you can do all that in Mexico? Do you trust their healthcare system? How does that work?
Great question. I'm glad you asked that because I got a lot of experience with this one. So, medical here is, I don't have health insurance. So I pay for, anytime I go to the doctor, I pay out of pocket. I've gone to the doctor a lot for different things. Like I told you, when I first moved here, I had hypertension. So as soon as I got here, I made sure that I got a primary care physician to just kind of help me to manage that piece. I've had hypothyroidism. It's an autoimmune disease. I've had that now for almost 20 years. And so I have to see an endocrinologist for that. So I go to the endocrinologist. So since I have been here, I have seen every specialist that I think every specialist that there is. I, of course, have a primary care physician. I've gone to I have an endocrinologist. I went to a cardiologist because, again, I had hypertension, so I had them do an EKG. Of course, I go to the gynecologist every year. I've been to a dermatologist. I have I have two orthopedic doctors because my knees was acting like they 50, and then my back. So I go to a different doctor for my back because he's a spine specialist, and I have some issues with my spine. I have an ophthalmologist, and I've actually had surgery here. I had eye surgery here in December, and I've had the best medical treatment here in my entire life, like the best. I just had a physical last week. I went to the lab, got my blood work done. I always do my blood work, even when I was in the States. I do my blood work first and then go to the doctor for the physical. So in the physical, we can go over the blood work. The doctor sat with me for 45 minutes. He explained the results. I got them right here. The results from my blood work was 8 pages. He went through and explained every single thing, line by line. Now, you know how when you go get a physical, they'll usually say, oh, all your blood work looks good. We just see that you need some iron. And then that's it. No, he went through every single line and explained, this test right here, test for XYZ. This test right here, test for this right here. Yours is perfect. This one test for this is perfect. Then he looked at my blood work and he like one of the numbers was, it was something like one of the numbers was a little bit low out of the range. And he said, "Are you in pain?" And I said, "Yeah, I have some back pain. I go to physical therapy for my back." He said, "Oh, that's what this number right here means. It means that you have some pain or inflammation in your body." I was looking at him like, nobody has ever told me that. Like, and so this 45-minute appointment cost me $25 US, 500 pesos. And I'm telling you, it was the most thorough physical. He listened to, I had like this little, it was like it was kind of like a cold sore or something on my mouth. He looked at it. He gave me this cream. I put that cream on my mouth 3 times and it cleared up. It's just like, I'm telling you, like, I have had the best. I go and get my mammograms. And when I was in the States, every time I got my mammogram, I would always have to go back to do an ultrasound because I have dense breasts and they always saw something, but it was nothing there. Every time I got that call, even though I had to do it every year, go back to do the ultrasound, I would get so nervous, like, oh my gosh. Here in Mexico, they do the mammogram and the ultrasound at the same time. And the doctor reads your results while you're there, so you don't have to leave with this whole fear around, is everything okay? You leave knowing what your results are. It's just, it's amazing. I had to have an MRI because, like I said, I have issues with my back. I had an MRI a month ago. The results was in my inbox when I got home. And I live 5 minutes from the hospital. Like, it's just like, it's been the best. Like, the medical care. I had Invisalign. Oh, I went to the orthodontist too. I had Invisalign because my bottom teeth crowded a little bit. And I had Invisalign. They straightened out my teeth. It cost me $1,700 US. Like, and it was like I think I had 17 trays of Invisalign and it straightened out my teeth. The best, the absolute best. So there's no medical, I don't have any medical insurance or anything like that. I just pay for my medicine or doctor visits or whatever. And the most I've ever had to pay for a doctor's visit was like 800 pesos, which it depends on what the conversion rate is, but like 800 pesos is about $40. That's for like when I went to the specialist. I went to a cardiologist. He gave me an EKG in his office, gave me the report, and it cost me $40.
You're going to be the reason why they're overloaded. I'm about to pack up this whole house.
Yeah, I've never been or felt so cared for here. And I have the cell phone numbers of all of my doctors. So if anything happens, if my stomach hurt, or I see something weird, or I'm feeling some kind of way, I can text my doctor and say, "Hey, this is going on." And most times they'll just tell you. They don't say like, "Oh, we'll come into the office so I can see you," unless it's something. You know how in the States it's like, we need that copay, so you could come into the office and then we'll let you know. I've had doctors text me and be like, "Okay, we'll try this right here and see if that works. If that doesn't work, then come in." It's amazing.
Can you fly in to get that, or you got to be a resident? Like,
No,
I'm ready to
I
fly
had
in just to
some.
get the medical care.
No, because when my daughter comes here, I have her. When she comes, I give her all her blood work. She gonna go to the dentist. She's going to get a physical, go get her PAP, all of that while she's here. Because it's gonna be less expensive and it's gonna be more thorough. I get my teeth cleaned for like $25. Amazing, absolutely amazing.
I just wanted to say I am just so pleased to see how peaceful you look, and I'm so happy for you. One question I had was, give me some difficulties, because a lot of times when I'm watching the videos, because I follow Stephanie Perry and Sharita and Adelia as well. Um, but I want some reality.
Mhm.
Because it can't be that sunshine, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you first got there, how did you find your apartment?
So I remember I said, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but I joined a Facebook group
Okay, yes, I heard you say
before
that.
before I moved here, and I was meeting people on the Facebook. I had me some friends and everything before I got here. But I joined the
Okay.
Facebook group, and in the Facebook group, I met a realtor. So I reached out to her and I told her, like, this is what I'm looking for. This is my budget. Can you help me? And she said, yeah. Then she sent me a couple of things, like, just to see if she was on point with what I wanted. I was like, yeah. But here in Mexico, you can't look in advance, because you could look online and something can be available today, and then tomorrow is off because somebody already got it. So she looked and she just sent me some things just to make sure that she was understanding what it was that I wanted and didn't want. And then closer to the date, like I told you, I went on vacation, and so while I was in Hawaii, she texted me a couple of properties, and she's like, tell me which ones you want to go look at. And she lined it up. So I got here on the 5th. I was looking at apartments on the 6th. And I found my apartment on the 6th because I looked at, like, I think 4 apartments that day. So that's how I found my place. As far as difficulties, the biggest challenge is the language barrier. I'm not fluent in Spanish. I'm learning Spanish. So that's the biggest challenge. And so just think about all the things that you do on a regular basis that you just think you do without thought. So a lot of times those are things that I have to give thought to. Like when I first got here, I I couldn't make a phone call and call somebody and say, can you come do whatever, because the hell I'm gonna say? Like like I couldn't do that. And so you don't think about that, but like my internet went out. Something happened. They came in and they installed the internet, everything was working fine, and then it went out. And then I was like, oh shoot, I can't call the internet company and ask them to come, because there is no push one for English. No, it's like there is no button for that. Like, and so my realtor is trilingual, and so she tried to call or whatever, and so that was a challenge, like initially with that. One day I bought some patio furniture to put on my balcony. I bought it at Home Depot. They said they was gonna deliver it. But I didn't read it because I bought it online, because I could translate stuff when I'm buying it online. I bought it online. I didn't read everything, and it said that they would deliver it, but they will only deliver it to the ground level. I live on the 5th level. And so when the delivery came, they was like, we here, but we ain't bringing it upstairs. And I'm like, well, what am I doing with that? So I ended up having to give them, I was like, well, take it back to the store then, because I ain't carrying it up no 5 flights of stairs. So then I had to figure out like how I'm gonna get my money back and all this other stuff. I have a friend here who's Mexican, and I ended up asking her if she can call the Home Depot for me and do the so little stuff like that, like especially when you first get here, it takes something from you, because especially when you independent, you used to doing stuff on your own, and now you got to get somebody to call Home Depot for you so they could give you your money back. It's like, ugh. So most of the challenges for me have been around language. But then, and I still don't speak Spanish, but I am a little bit better, and I'm learning how things operate. So a lot of stuff happens on WhatsApp. You can text, everything. And so between WhatsApp and Google Translate, those are my booze. And so we kind of do stuff that way, but it's still sometimes a little bit of a challenge when it comes to dealing with language. Another challenge that I had is just understanding that everything is not going to operate like it does in the United States. And so in the States, we just have this mindset of how things happen, how things work, and just understanding that it don't happen like that. And it's not going to happen like that. And so you just have to be very, very adaptable when it comes to certain things. This is a very small example, but just an example. So there's a guy here who owns a fishing company. He goes out, he's a fisherman. He goes out and catches fish, shrimp, crabs, well, like lobsters, whatever, all this stuff, right? And he delivers it. He delivers it all over the city. I can text him. In fact, I got a delivery on Friday. Or he'll text me and be like, Amiga, we coming tomorrow. What you need? Kind of thing, right? So they deliver you can't give me no time that he's coming to deliver that seafood. So when I say yes to a delivery, I've got to know that I need to be home all day because I don't know what time he's going to show up with my shrimp. And on Friday, he came at 5:30. Sometimes it's 1:30. So stuff like that, like you want a time because that's what we're accustomed to, or a window. You're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get that. Or when I first moved here, I had to get somebody to put my stuff together, like my desk and all this other stuff. And we have a saying here where they say they'll mañana you. So they say they coming tomorrow, but tomorrow might not be tomorrow. It might be Thursday, or it might, or it might be tomorrow. So those are some of the things that are challenging, and a lot of it is just changing your expectations and just adapting to the way things go. Like, it's kind of like when you go to the island, ain't nobody in no hurry to do nothing, so you need to just relax, and you're gonna get it when you get it. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Because just being realistic that you're not gonna get what we get here in America. And just like you said, when you go to the island, it's like soon come. And what that means,
We
2, 3
soon
days.
come. Right, right. And that's the
Yes,
same
yes,
thing here.
definitely,
You will get
definitely.
mananaed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to see because us growing up in Miami, it's like, okay, are you in Little Havana? You know what I'm saying? When you go in the store, nobody's speaking the language, and
Right. And
so
like it's growing. This area is growing a lot. So more and more people are speaking, or they're trying to speak Spanish. I mean English, and learn English. But I'm trying just as hard to learn Spanish and speak Spanish. So because I respect the fact that this is not my country. Spanish is their language, and so I am working very hard to try to learn that language so that I want to be able to communicate on my own. I don't want to be looking like, what did they say? Like even now, like I just know certain words and I know certain contexts. And so sometimes I don't know all the words that you just said, but I know 4 of them words and I put them together. And in this particular context, this is what makes sense. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's what she said. So yeah.
but one thing also, it seems like community kind of help you a little bit too, being
Yeah,
able
it
to.
does, because I do spend a great deal of my time with expats. And so that's probably one of the reasons why my learning Spanish is slow as it is, because I do spend a lot of time with expats. But that is the thing that has given me, that's the soft landing that I needed. I needed that to make, because this was a huge transition. And so having that has made the transition a little bit easier for me. And that's what works for me.
One, I really appreciate you doing this. This is very, very helpful and informative. What entertainment options do you have? I mean, do you like go to the movies? Do you go bowling?
Yeah, so they have movies here, and the movies you can see, like there are movies that show in Spanish and there are movies that show in English. So you just got to make sure you pick the right movie when you buy your ticket. You could go to the movies. There is a bowling alley here. Everything, like this city, the city that I live in, it's a very small city, but it has a big city feel. So it's almost like just about anything that you would have in a big city is here. The only thing that I think is probably missing is like the whole nightlife. And nightlife here is different. So like nightlife here it's very familiar. Like there are lots of families here, and you see people with families. Like you'll see little kids out at 11, 12 o'clock at night, but they're with their families. And so they might have just left the restaurant, because they eat dinner real late here. And so they may have left the restaurant and they might be walking around the park or something like that. and you see lots of families and stuff together. There are lots of community events, and a lot of those events are free. So like parades and carnivals and circuses and stuff like that. Like the carnivals probably, I don't know, I've never done. I don't do stuff that little kids do because I don't have no little kids. So but there, it's families. There are a lot of families here. So the families have things that they do and they get their kids involved in things. As far as like for adults, it's a ton of restaurants. I've been here 2 years and I still haven't eaten at all of the restaurants. And I'm like, it's just like, oh, I haven't tried. And I try not to go back to the same restaurant because there's so many restaurants that I still haven't gone to. So it's lots of restaurants. There's lots of arts. So if you're into the arts, a lot of museums. So it's plenty to do. You could go we're not far from the beach, so it's not a beach town, but we're not far from the beach. So the closest beach I can drive to in about 30 minutes, and then there are some others that are a little bit further away. Personally, I like going to the beach club because it's a little bit more secluded and it's not a whole lot of people peddling, trying to sell you stuff. It's just, I can just relax and they bring me margaritas and food. Yeah. L, go ahead. I'm sorry. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, L, your turn.
Good evening. Thank you for doing this. I've sat in before, but I'm always curious about how your experiences are going. So thank you for your time. The question that I have, is going to be around risk. So when I tried to get on tonight, I couldn't get on the regular Zoom and it kept kicking me off. And it said the host requires that you do commercial or something. I'm like, okay, I'm sure Bernadette got her situation straight when she's, not, trying to have
When I
me.
post a link in a public forum like that, I was like, I got to do everything I can to make this secure because I don't want nobody coming in here and hijacking the. Yeah.
Right. So speak to me a little bit about like the risk around like you working remote. Like of course, I got my own company with risk management. I work remote and I want to always, protect my clients, their information, everything. So what have you had to do differently there than you've had to do in the US? Are you more guarded? Are you more, mindful of, having to set controls in place to protect access?
I think it's the same. Like the same stuff that I did in the States is the same stuff that I do here. I have all the things that I had, I'm not going to go into it because, hackers be watching. But, so I have all the things in place to safeguard data and safeguard my information. We had all of, the various systems and stuff. So nothing really changed. I think from maybe from an IT perspective, the only other thing is I have a VPN because sometimes I have to log into the VPN in order to access certain websites because if I log in with my Mexican IP, I can't get into those sites. But other than that, I haven't had to do, from a business perspective, I haven't had to do anything differently because like I said, I've been remote. My firm has been remote for the last 12 years anyway. So all of the things that I had to do to protect my business, the data and all of that, I'm still doing it. So.
Okay, and the VPN, is that something I've had that in corporate, but not as an entrepreneur. So is that something you can just like subscribe to as your own
Yeah, it's a
company?
service. You could just and it's not that expensive, depending on which company you actually go with for the VPN service. Some of them you pay annually, some of them you pay monthly. But yeah, it's just a service that allows you to connect from a router in a different place. So
Yeah, I'm familiar with what it is. I just
yeah,
didn't know how accessible it was for entrepreneurs.
it
So
is, and it's not very expensive. I don't
okay.
even remember how much it costs. That's how inexpensive it is.
Oh, that's good. And you said the language is a barrier, which I clearly understand that. So when you go into your medical appointments, are all your
All my
doctors
doctors
speak
speak
English?
English.
Oh, good. Okay, all your doctors speak English. And that was probably your criteria when you selected them?
Yeah, so there's this app where you can, not all doctors are on there, but a lot of the doctors that I found are that, I don't want to say the good doctors because just because they don't speak English doesn't make them a good doctor, but on there you can kind of, it has filters and you can select. So that's how I found the surgeon who did my eye surgery, I found her on that app. And so that's one of my criteria when I find a doctor is that they speak English. And one of the things that I learned about Mexico is that the more educated a person is, the more likely they will speak English, because the people here who go to like private school, they get a bilingual education. It's the people who go to the public schools who don't. So typically you're going to have a doctor. It's not uncommon to have a doctor that speaks English, but it would be very uncommon for a cleaner to speak English. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah.
Thank you for that.
Okay, Felicia.
Thanks again. Quick question, Bernadette. I remember when we were in Italy for 6 months with Jordan. That was where I started looking at some of this and consideration of it. And I read something that you might be able to help make sure I understand it clearly. I read something about hiring companies consent to work remotely if you live in Mexico, but you can work remotely for a company, and you just have to get the company's consent. So like, for instance, if I work for a nonprofit, I just have to get them to give me a letter and I would be able to live there and work remotely. Is that accurate?
So the letter might be something that you need when you go to the consulate to prove income, but it's more around making sure that making sure your employer knows where you are, because the employer may have some tax consequences for having workers in multiple countries and stuff like that. So the letter would only be necessary, and I say only with air quotes because it just depends if you needed it when you went to the consulate to show like that your income is not going to change. So for me, when I went to prove my income, I basically said like, hey, this is my company, and then I showed them the proof that it was my company. I'm imagining that if I had a job, maybe they could ask for like that letter, like you said, to show that my income is not going to change when I move to this new country.
Okay, that's exactly, when you mentioned it from the standpoint of, owning your business. I looked at that, and then I wanted to know, well, if I decided to go back to work, what were the options that might be, afforded to you there? Because I know it's a whole lot of us folk who working for people, and we could very well be doing that in another space.
Yeah, especially when you have a job that's work from home. So
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the reasons why I would like to leave is to escape racism. So, do you encounter that there, or any encounters with police there?
So one of the things that I've never experienced it personally, and I can only speak from my personal experience. What I have experienced or what I have witnessed is that Mexico is very much a class system. So it is based on what you make, so and a lot of times, not always the case, but this has been my experience, that when people see me as an American, they assume or they think that I have money. And so if you have money here, you get treated a certain way. And I live, and please don't, no one mishear this, because I'm not saying this from a boastful standpoint, but I live where the rich Mexicans live, right? So I live in a very affluent area. I live in a affluent building. Everybody in this building got money. I don't know, I kind of got some money, but they really got some money, right? So because of where I live, and I ship my car here and I drive a luxury car. So because of where I live and what I drive, it is automatically assumed that I have money. And so because it's a class system, you get treated a certain way when you have money. I haven't I haven't encountered anyone that like looked down or any of the things, like no microaggressions, none of that kind of stuff. And so I'm very grateful to not have to experience any of that. Yeah. I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with a class system. I'm just saying that my station in life has put me somewhere where I actually benefit from one of these systems because yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. So
Okay, so that actually leads me to my next question. Do you ever plan on buying there, or you think you're just going to continue to rent?
I don't think so because I don't know how long I'm gonna be here. I love it here. I'll probably be here forever, but I might not. And I love the fact that I have the mind and the flexibility to live wherever I want. And so in 2 years, I will become a permanent resident in 2 years. And in 2 years, if I decide that I want to live somewhere else or try out another country, I just want the freedom of being able to do that. Owning property as a foreigner in Mexico is different because you have to put it in a trust and all of that other stuff. And quite honestly, of all the great things that happen here, I've heard a lot of people talk about a lot of fraud when it comes to real estate. Like, and I don't want to make a major purchase like that in a country where I don't speak the language. Like and I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to. So yeah. So I doubt it very seriously that I will purchase property here. And I can only speak to how I feel today.
So I know you don't have children, but I think maybe you know some people that will move there with children.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a lot of
what
people here with kids.
can you share about one, what you know about the education system or what you've heard, and then about community for the children, right? So there's community for you as an adult, but then what is it? Have you heard or observed about children transitioning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some parents are homeschooling their kids. Some parents have their kids enrolled in like private school here. When they are enrolled, like I do have a friend here who has two like elementary school age kids, and their kids go to they really like the school. So they're getting, I think they're learning 3 languages. I think they're getting a trilingual education. I know for sure that they're learning Spanish and English, but I feel like there was a third language, but I'm not sure. And so there's some really good private schools here. And that's the perfect age to introduce them to a new language because kids, they learn languages and stuff and they pick up stuff a lot faster than we as adults because we just been doing stuff our own little way for so long. So the schools, there are some good schools here. Homeschooling is an option as well. It also depends on the kids though, because I've seen, like, I just talked to a mom who's going back to the States because she said academically it's not good for her kid. And so there's some that make it and some that don't. As far as community, again, there is community around that because it's a lot of families here. Like there are a lot of people here single like me with no kids or empty nesters or whatever, but there are also a lot of families that have moved here and they move here with their kids. And so the kids have stuff to do. They go skating, they have pool parties, they do all kind of stuff. And then if they mix and mingle with the kids, the local kids, man, those kids, like their birthday parties are like off the chain. Like they have birthday parties that adults envy, you know. And so and again, kids are able to do that as far as like mixing and mingling with people. So yeah, there's community and there, depending on, I'm not sure, I can't remember, Kanisha, how old your kids are, but I know there's a teen club and they do a lot of stuff. Like they have like a prom and they do social events and community service and they do all kinds of stuff. So
Thanks for doing this. So the only question I have was more around you talked about having internet and those type of things. In the US, we have building systems for all of that, for lights and gas and all of that. So is it the same there in Mexico, or is it all some of it packaged in your rent?
So I pay my internet is separate. My electricity is separate, so I get a separate bill for that. I don't have a water bill because I live in a high rise, so the water is included. And then the gas is separate, but they just text me and be like, your gas bill is X number of pesos. And I just transfer whatever they say. Like I don't never see a bill. They could be lying, I don't know. But I mean, it's my gas bill typically is about $17 a month. So I just be like, okay,
Okay.
whatever. And so I just transfer. So that's how that works. Typically, nobody is gonna include electricity in your rent because electricity is very expensive here. So for me,
Okay.
living alone, my electric bill, when it's like 100 degrees, and I'm not exaggerating when I say 100 degrees, when it's like 100 degrees, my electric bill is usually around 250 a month. That's just for one person. And
That
I,
US dollars?
huh? Yeah,
US dollars?
yeah,
Okay.
US. And
Okay.
so that's like, and that's with me, like, I don't know, you can see me, I'm in here sweating a little bit. I'm getting used to it. So I'm like, sometimes I don't mind sweating. I'd rather be sweating than to be freezing because when you turn the AC on, then it's freezing. You gotta turn it off. And so, but yeah,
Hmm.
so electricity is really expensive here. So nobody is gonna include electricity in your rent. If anything, you might get water included, but that's not usually the case. I think it's only the case for me because I live in a high-rise building. But if you had like a house, you'll get all those bills separately. You got to pay for trash. I don't pay for trash. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay, one last question. You talked about a car, having your car there. How is driving? And
Good,
is it
good.
necessary where you live?
It's necessary
That's
for
it.
me. There are a lot of
Hmm.
people that say, do you need a car there? Can you live here without a car? Yes. Will it be the most convenient or desired situation? Likely not. The beauty of having a car is like yesterday, I said, oh, I want to go check out this store. I'm kind of decorating my apartment. And so I was like, let me go see if they have anything that I want to add. I'm still looking for something for my centerpiece on my table. So I went
Hmm.
to the store and they didn't have anything. And then I went to another store and they didn't have anything. And then I went to Walmart and got some stuff and then came home. If I had an Uber, I would have had to take an Uber to the store, then get another Uber to take me to the other store, then get another Uber to take me to the Walmart, and then another Uber to come home. You're not gonna do that because before my car got here, I went one place and came home. It's just to me, it was exhausting getting in and out of
Hmm.
Ubers and all of that stuff. But it's a personal thing, and maybe I felt like that because I knew I had a car coming at some point. So having a car is just a little bit more convenient to me because I can go whenever I want to go and I can go as much as I want to go. And when I go, like if I go to, before I had my car and I went to the grocery store, I had to be mindful of how much groceries I got
Hmm.
because the
Yeah.
Ubers are real tiny. They little cars. Like I ain't never seen like it looked like you could pick some of these cars up. They so little. And so I could only get enough groceries that's gonna fit like in the back of the back seat of the car, and then I gotta carry the groceries up. Yeah, so it was just like for me, I would not want to be here without a car. But there are
Okay.
lots of people who do. Like of my friend group, you've seen my Facebook posts and stuff, and I have at least 20 people in my friend group. It's probably 5 of us with cars. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Mhm. All right. We over our hour. I'm gonna give y'all 5 more minutes. Who has a quick question?
Was it
Okay.
expensive to ship your car?
Yes. No. No, I mean expensive is relative. It was probably about $2,000.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, can you give us 3 tips on how we can mentally, physically prepare for making such a move?
Mentally, you have to renew your mind. You can't come here with a mind and thinking that things are going to be like they are in the States, because they're not. You got to get a set of patience that you don't have in the States, because there are certain things that happen here that just you're going to think is so backwards, or it's just so crazy or whatever. And so you got to get some patience and just be open to accepting that it's not going to be like it was in the States. Even when it comes to the medical stuff, the doctors are more caring, they spend more time with you, it's less expensive, but you have to take a lot of responsibility in that space, because I am the keeper of my records. There is no portal that has all of my records. Like if you had Kaiser, or if you got my chart or something like that, there is none of that. There ain't nobody texting you and saying, hey, it's time for your 6-month checkup to the dentist and all of that. So you have to keep up with those things. And so understanding that just things are going to be different here. Those are some of the things that helped me, because when I first got here, I told y'all I got here on the 5th. I found my apartment on the 6th. I didn't move in until the next month, because it was just a whole bunch of stuff that happened. And I was just like, oh my God, like I never had it take this long, and it ain't like it's no credit checks or nothing like that. It was just stuff that just made it take longer. And I had to learn patience real quick. Kenitra, wrap us up.
I hope my question will wrap it up. All right. So you mentioned that, so I guess right now it's a really top city in Mexico. What do you know about the politics? And meaning, is there anything that would give you pause about the future of the city, whether it's for safety or for anything, in terms of what
Honestly,
other cities may be dealing with in Mexico?
I don't know anything about politics. Like, I hate politics in the States. And I was like, I am not coming to another country to even, I don't want to say I don't care, but I'm not concerned. I guess that's probably a nicer way to say it. So I don't know the name of the mayor, the governor, I don't know none of that. Like I don't. And that's probably not a very educated sounding answer, but I don't know none of that. And as a foreigner, you can't participate anyway. Like if there's a protest, you can't show up for the protest, you get deported. So it's like they ain't talking to me. So I'm over here and I'm just minding my Black owned business, and that's it. Like, so yeah.
Thank you for this, Bernadette. This has been very helpful.
Good. So I'm gonna wrap it up, but before I wrap it up, I do have another sister that's on here who has moved to Mexico. She's already here. And so Carol, I'm gonna give you a few minutes just to introduce yourself, tell them very quickly about your experience. And then we're gonna get out of here.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here. My name is Carol J. Dunlop. My husband and I run Creative Services International. I've known Bernadette for, golly, I don't know, a long time, over 10 years.
That's it. That's all we got to say,
yeah.
a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. My husband, when they overturned Roe versus Wade, that was in 2022, I think, right? I can't remember exactly, but I think it was in 2022. When they overturned that, he looked at me and he said, I don't think I can live in a country where half the people don't have any rights. I was like, oh, really? Okay, let me go searching. So then I found Stephanie Perry, Rashida Dow, Pinky Travels the World. I can't remember her name, but all of those people, I started looking at it. And it took us about 2 years to get everything together, because we were renting, and we wanted to wait until our rental was up before we left. And then also we wanted to, make sure we had enough money to come here. Presently, right now, we are on a 6-month tourist visa. We've actually gone back to Atlanta twice. We went back to Atlanta to vote, and then we came back. And we are getting ready to get the temporary residency. So that's what we're working on. We actually live in Playa del Carmen. We're in the beach, baby, and they know how to party down here, but we don't do it. We don't party. We just like you, Bernadette, 9:30, we out. So if you want a party city, you can come down here. We live in a 2-bedroom condo. We are blocks from the beach. We're right around the corner from Quinta Avenida, that big long shopping strip and all of that. And we just love it. And the main reason that we moved here because we heard that it was safe. It has been safe. Nobody's using us for target practice or yelling any kind of crazy stuff at us, all of that. None of that's happening. The people have been awesome and amazing. And one of the best things that happened to me is I have high blood pressure and I recently ran out of my, like my 9-month supply ended. So I'm thinking, oh, now I got to find a doctor and get this, get my prescription filled. My husband was like, just show him the bottle and see what happens.
Yeah.
I went to the pharmacia, showed on the bottle, and they brought out 6 boxes of my medicine. I was like, okay, thank you very much. And it was $24. So I'm good. We love it here in Mexico. We've only been here 3 months, but we are not planning on going anywhere right now. The one thing that we are planning on doing is seeing some more of the world. And our business is just like Bernadette's is online. We have clients that are in the States. So we take our US dollars, change them to pesos, and make good money.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me and let me tell our story, because if you really want to do it, if you really want to move, you can do it. But I do suggest this one thing I suggest, and that's do your research, figure out what you want, because it is hot, hot, hot here in Playa del Carmen. It's a tropical environment. It gets very hot. Like right now, it's still in the 80s. So it's hot. So if you don't like the heat, don't come here.
Don't come to Merida because it's 90 degrees here. So yeah. And Playa, they speak a little bit more English because it's more of a tourist.
Not really, though. They say that on YouTube and they tell you all that mess, but they really don't. Only 10% of the Mexicans here really speak really fluent English. Most of them are looking at you. If you go up there and talk to them and try to do the English stuff, they'd be looking at you like, what you talking about? No.
Okay.
But one thing, like you said, Google Translate and, just being attentive to them and really trying to learn some Spanish and say some words and stuff. Best thing to ever happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for showing up. And hopefully this was helpful, at least enough. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I just wanted to share my own experience of what is people been DMing me and texting me. And so I figured this is more efficient than answering a whole bunch of DMs and not being able to fully answer it because you just don't know what questions that you have. So yeah, so take care. Whatever you decide to do, whether it's Mexico or somewhere else, do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself.